Welcome back to Cyber Bytes. Today, we're revisiting a conversation 18 months in the making. Back then, we talked about the rise of browser agents, now used by nearly 80% of organizations. But in that time, the browser has become one of the hottest battlegrounds in security, and no one has had a closer view of that evolution than my guest, Vivek, founder of SquareX. With a background as a penetration tester and security educator, he brings a rare attacker mindset to product design. In this episode, we'll explore why the browser is such an attractive target, what myths need to be busted, and how CISOs can apply attacker principles to their defense strategies. Enjoy.
Okay, and we're live. So this is a special episode because me and Vivek actually first met back at RSA, which was about 18 months ago now. So Vivek, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on for the second time. How are you?
Very good, Stefan. And as I said, super excited to be back again. And I'm sure a lot has happened in 18 months, both at your end and my end. So yeah, great to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll dive into that. I think it'd be good to start just giving a quick introduction for those that haven't seen the previous episode or don't know who you
Yeah,
are or anything about SquareX. Do you mind just giving a brief introduction?
of course, yeah. So, I'm Vivek Ramachandran, been in cybersecurity 25 years, started off on the attack side, spoke at Defcon, BlackHat, discovered vulnerabilities, authored books. I'm a serial entrepreneur, did companies before like Pen Tester Academy. SquareX is something that we started building roughly 2.5 years back. And SquareX is pioneering browser detection response, which is really fancy way of saying an EDR in the browser. And alongside with that, we also solve browser DLP and classic enterprise browser use cases. We are well capitalized. We've raised over 30 million in the last 2.5 years from Sequoia Capital Southeast Asia, which is now Peak XV, along with Sin Ventures, which is US based, and a host of other amazing angels. So
Yeah. Yeah, you've got some impressive backing for sure. And the I'm keen to start on the browser and how that space has changed over the last 18 months, because from what I hear anyway, the browser's very buzzy at the moment, especially with the threat landscape changing with AI and security and all of that good stuff. Um, how have you seen things change over the last 18 months? Are there some key topics and trends that you've seen that have evolved?
yeah. I think Stefan, great question. So I think 18 months back, when we were having our conversations at that point, if you would go to any CISO and say browser security, they would immediately say enterprise browsers. And that's all they knew about browser security, right? Now, in the past 18 months, to your point, a couple of different, tailwinds which have kind of happened. One is attackers are more actively targeting identity attacks in the browser, like OAuth hijacking, browser in the middle, adversary in the middle, and a lot of big organizations are getting compromised. I mean, including even folks like CyberHaven, who is a security vendor, right?
Yeah.
Now, alongside with that, AI is playing a very interesting role because no one really knows where it is headed. Almost every IT department now has a budget to allocate, ChatGPT Enterprise or whatever for employees. But security teams are still scrambling to figure out like how to protect against this. Now,
Mm.
having said that, for a typical enterprise employee, all of AI really just happens through the browser, right? Whether he's talking to ChatGPT, Claude, writing documents or whatnot. So this has really created a need for much more granular browser DLP. So
Mm.
in 18 months, in summary, browser security is now breaking up into three distinct SKUs. The first is browser detection response, and that is an EDR in the browser. The second is browser DLP with very fine-grained capability for Gen AI monitoring and things like that. And
Mhm.
the third piece is your classic enterprise browsers, which is BYOD, VDI replacement, contractors, and all.
Yeah.
So that's been the big change.
Interesting. And with SquareX, are you guys playing in one of those, or are you playing across all three?
Yeah, great question. So we started on browser detection and response, and what we figured is that DLP was a natural extrapolation, and I'll tell you why. In classical DLP solutions, the assumption is that your employee is your most sophisticated adversary. And unfortunately, that doesn't work anymore. So we've been hearing about the news where North Korean, state actors are infiltrating every company, becoming employees, exfiltrating data. People are starting to realize is the craziest adversary within the company is equal to the one out external to the company. So SquareX's browser DLP assumes that a sophisticated attacker is at play both internally as well. And that's how we ended up extending this to browser DLP as well.
Nice.
And the third piece around enterprise browser use cases, we kind of felt like sitting in the browser, those were fairly simplistic traffic redirection use cases. So,
Mm,
in summary, we now basically offer all of these three SKUs to our customers.
great. Yeah, and I feel like I was reading some research before this, and I think there was a stat that said browse seven, I think it's 79% of organizations are using browser agents at the moment. So it just shows I don't know what that looked like 18 months ago, but no wonder why browser is such a hot topic because 80% of organizations are leveraging browsers, right?
Exactly. And I'll just add one more thing, Stefan. You brought up a very interesting point. These AI agents are running or eventually will run in users' browsers, and this could be your Prime, Vanilla, Chrome, Firefox, whatever,
Hmm.
or AI browsers like Comet from Perplexity, some of the new stuff which is coming in, but with the identity of the user. So IDPs at this point cannot give you a fragmented identity where
Mm,
you as Stefan can log into Salesforce, do a bunch of activities, but your AI agent with your same identity is stopped from doing certain activities.
yeah.
And this is what is leading to this whole rogue AI agents, right? We've heard about, I think if I remember, Replit, the entire code base getting deleted and whatnot. So anyway, this is going to be another big interesting show that we'll all get to watch very soon.
Yeah. And so you have a unique perspective on things because you come from the background of penetration testing, right?
Yeah.
And you're a security educator. How does that attacking mindset uniquely inform SquareX's product decisions and architecture?
Yeah, yeah. So Stefan, I'll kind of borrow a quote from John Waters, who used to be the CEO of Mandiant, and before that, iSight, he was the founder, if I remember. And he said, the only innovators in cybersecurity are the attackers, because that's all enterprises will eventually care about. So what we've done, to your point, is with our attacker mindset, understanding of what attackers are doing, we are going behind that as our North Star.
Mm,
So two things over there, which is any new bleeding edge attack comes, SquareX immediately jumps in, figures out how to protect. At the very same time, we are pushing the envelope ourselves by finding new vulnerabilities before attackers can. And speaking at Defcon, BlackHat, all the big conferences. I'll give you a big one this year. We proved that passkeys in their current implementation in the browser are susceptible to MITM attacks with script injection. And there are a lot of schools of thought, people come in and say, oh, the FIDO guys ended up saying that there needs to be a secure platform on top of which this should have been done. So this is hitting below the belt. The truth is that's what attackers do. Attackers hit below the belt.
mm.
So there is no fair fight here. Anyway, so yeah, so
Yeah.
that's been our key advantage.
I was gonna
So
say, yeah, the attackers they're not worried about having a fair fight, right? That they want to eat, and they're gonna find a way to do that. So there's no, I guess, play a level playing field in that regard.
yeah.
And so, in your opinion, why is the browser so attractive to threat actors, and potentially what needs to change in how organizations think about their defense today?
Yeah. So I think, Stefan, what's been happening is that if you think about it, people are progressively downloading fewer and fewer documents, and they have fewer and fewer local applications running on their computer where they do anything, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's entertainment, transactions, and whatnot. And if you look at younger people, probably in the age group of, below 30, they've been born into a web first SaaS world, and they literally don't need a Microsoft Word. I still need a Microsoft Word. Somehow it still gives me a sense of comfort that I can open up a local PowerPoint. But I've barely ever seen anyone below the age of 30 trying to open up a local PowerPoint, right? So what I'm kind of alluding to is the fact that almost all work is happening via the browser. I
Mhm.
mean, honestly, you could literally just boot up your computer into the browser and you would never miss a thing.
Mm,
And this is really where, with every workflow going through it, attackers are realizing that the endpoint is no longer juicy. There is nothing sitting on the endpoint apart from the browser.
mm,
So even if you got malware to install, what you're doing is then attacking the browser on the endpoint, trying to get passwords out of it and whatnot. Now, EDRs and endpoint security has kind of evolved and kind of aged well in the sense that a lot of attacks get detected. Generally, it's very difficult to evade, right, in comparison to many years back.
Yep.
And this is really where attackers are pivoting and saying, why go through all of this trouble, drop a piece of malware, may get detected. Rather, why don't we just steal things from the browser itself?
Yeah.
So identity attacks are on the rise. Browser software architectural vulnerabilities like sync jacking, polymorphic browser extensions, some of which we've disclosed as well, all on the rise. So the browser is the new endpoint, and attackers are now building custom malware, ransomware for this new endpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about like even the stack that I use is so true. Like I have like probably 10 or 11 different extensions via Google Chrome. And I could just operate, as you say, I could load my computer up and I could operate just straight from the browser. So it's interesting, and that must be most people now as well.
Exactly. And 99% of folks, they literally Zoom and Teams and everything is just through the browser.
Yeah,
So
yeah. They don't have that desktop application. I'm gonna say I feel like they're almost like clunky. And like everything just goes through the browser now, as you say.
exactly. And you don't have to update anything which loads through the browser anyway, right? So
Yeah,
this is your local Zoom.
it makes sense. And kind of want to switch the conversation slightly. So you're obviously a solo founder, which is a unique dynamic in itself because a lot of folks that I deal with and speak to, they have a co-founder or maybe two co-founders to leverage. How do you find being a co-founder, a single co-founder, should I say, or single CEO?
Yeah, yeah. So I think, two parts, Stefan, on the bright side, I think many critical decisions I can just take super fast and there aren't going to be arguments. We all know the number one reason for startups to fail is co-founder disagreements.
Mm,
And, even sometimes with your best friends, you start something and that can happen. And I can tell you the very, very first company I ever started, 2006, I had two co-founders and I quickly realized that you either get lucky, it's like a relationship that over time it ages well or it kind of degrades. But
mm,
having said that, having done companies before, what I've realized is if you have a great founding team, and I've been lucky, there are amazing folks on the team, who've been with me for a while, Jaswin Shore, a bunch of folks you may have even met before. That has actually allowed us to build a technology stack where, I completely trust what they're building. And the most other important thing which I've realized is that you have to know to delegate early, trust people, but also at the very same time verify that these are the right kind of people where you can happily delegate most activities and trust them to get it done.
yeah,
So if you manage to find, a bunch of those amazing folks, what you'd actually see that you can run an organization in a fantastically distributed way and never miss having a co-founder.
yeah,
Uh, of course, a lot of people will talk about the emotional journey. There are highs and lows, 100%, and I wouldn't say that I'm completely immune to those. But that's really where, founding teams, people who worked with me before, Jaswin, Shaurya, Nishant, Mridula, all of those folks, I kind of look at them and lean on them for a lot of this. So when there is a bad event, something went wrong, maybe we lost a customer, that's a group huddle that we can do and be a little bit more dispassionate rather than targeting each other. So yeah.
yeah. And it must be hard, right? What motivates you as a solo founder, and how do you just like sustain that drive and the energy to keep on learning after, as you say, multiple ventures?
Yeah. I think at the core, Stefan, I'm in love with cybersecurity. I think it was love at first sight like 27 years back.
Mm,
And even today, I can tell you is even though I run the company as the CEO, when I see a new attack, I will immediately try to pick up my phone any free minute I get, read through it, immediately post to the team and say, I think we should detect this one.
mm,
So at the core, I just love the subject. I just love cybersecurity. I love to think about attacks, how to, protect against them and all of that. Now, the rest of it around it, I mean, I can tell you some days can be quite overwhelming. Absolutely. But because at the core, I love it, I enjoy. The second piece is I think I've been in the space for so long that I have a lot of these interesting ideas I want to see come to life.
mm,
And there's been a lot of times back in the day when I was like, I wish somebody would build it. And now we have investors who trust us. So that's another is a lot of these ideas which I want to see alive. The only way to do it is to go do it myself along with the team.
Yeah.
So I think that's the second piece is I love building. I feel like I'm a creator. So passion for cybersecurity, massive zeal to create an amazing support system from my family to bear, this crazy work schedule is what kind of like keeps me going.
Yeah. I feel like the passion and the love is key, right? If you love what you do, then you're not waking up thinking, oh, I've got to go to work today. I've got to do this. You're excited. You're building what you love doing.
Yeah. And Stefan, I can tell you, I don't know if you've noticed, but in 18 months, I've also gotten a quite fitter.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you go back and look at the video.
We're gonna have
So,
to compare the two now, Vivek.
before, after, I'm sure you can. And that was an important piece as well, is I think I was ignoring my health quite a bit. But now, no matter what, like 6 days a week, I go hit the gym in the morning, 1 hour as soon as I wake up. That's been very helpful. That's the other thing which kind of keeps me going is touch wood, feeling great every morning when I wake up.
That's a good point, actually, because I feel I get in this trap as well, is like you're so bogged down with things to do. It's like, oh look, I can skip the gym because I need to crack on with working. But actually, when you get into a regime and cycle, as you say, you feel so much more better and potentially more productive. And it's probably the case in your situation as well.
1000%. I can't recommend. I mean, you and I are full in agreement, but I mean, this is something I guess we can't recommend enough to everybody who's listening to this, right? Like, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, love it. And I was speaking to Janice, and I think you told me this last time as well, and she mentioned that you've written a comic book, right? I think it's called The Hack. And I think the story behind this is it was to teach your son about ethical hacking, if I'm correct in saying. Do you mind sharing the story?
yeah. No, absolutely. So it was very interesting, right? Pen Tester Academy had exited, and I had a bunch of time in my hand. And my elder son, was starting to kind of look at me every day at home, and he was like, "Dad, like you aren't going to work." So I was like, "Yeah." I said, "I've just had an exit," and he was like, "What do you do?" And I think at that point he was probably like 8 or 9, I think. So I said, "Hey, why don't you go online and search?" And here I am as a father, 20 years dedicated cybersecurity, hoping to feel proud that my son would walk to me and say, "Oh my God, I never knew that you did all of the security research and Defcon talks." But he walks in and he says, "You're a hacker, you're a crook, you steal from people." I was like, "What?" And and that is when I realized is the mainstream narrative of the word hacker, unfortunately, has completely gone down the drain
Yeah.
versus what it used to be about, curiosity, being inquisitive, trying to figure out how to break things, whatnot, right? So,
Mm,
so that's really when Stefan, what I thought was, hey, how do I kind of introduce something to my son and kids his age where hacking looks like interesting, looks like mind games, challenging, and all of that. And I thought, look, all of us, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to the next generation now, but all of us have, kind of gotten older reading comic books, superheroes, and all of that. So that's when the idea came in is like, could we create like a hacker vigilante comic book? And in that, talk about hacking, but in a really technical way, but still abstracted enough that people enjoy.
mm,
So we did 4 issues. We published the first one. We're going to publish a few others as well,
great.
where we talk about IoT hacking and all of that stuff. So this isn't like Matrix or the Swordfish, where Neo is like showing his hands and the clouds part, and I probably wouldn't get into the Swordfish scene. 'Cause I'm
I
guessing
love
your podcast is PG-13.
I love the story. I think it's such a cool thing to do. Is your son interested in the hacking space? Does he want to follow your footsteps? Or
I would say it's too early. What I'd try to do definitely is not to influence, but rather to see if genuine curiosity is there from his side.
Mhm.
Uh, I think that is where I was lucky with my parents, right? My parents were bankers, and they always said, look, finance and accounting could be amazing things to follow, but they never pushed me to do it.
Got it.
So yeah, we will see. But
Yeah.
the reverse question really is if he didn't do cybersecurity, would it matter to me? No, it wouldn't, till the time he finds something he's as passionate about as I am in cybersecurity.
Yeah, love it. Um, what's one browser security myth that you would like to see busted that you hear about?
Yeah, that's a good one. And which is, I use Chrome Enterprise and I think I'm fully protected, because you know what? If Google can't protect you, who can? It's the same thing as if Microsoft can't protect you, then how would a CrowdStrike? And but this is 15 years back when CrowdStrike was a nobody. So I think a lot of times
Yeah.
we get that. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. So what you're saying is if they're using Google, if Google can't protect us, well, no one else is going to be able to. But so in that scenario, do you leverage the Microsoft CrowdStrike relationship and like that dynamic? What does it look like?
yeah. So great question, Stefan. So what I realized is that beyond a point, talk is cheap. I can convince people, try to give them analogies from the past and whatnot. So my set method is, we have a site called scan.browser.security. And I say, you know what, you feel you're protected with your SASE SSE, with your Google Chrome Enterprise, go to scan.browser, run a scan, see what you find. And
Mm,
the moment they see a bunch of vulnerabilities kind of like show up immediately where attackers can break in, that's when the CISO or the head of security comes and says, Vivek, what is this exactly? I mean, is this gimmicky? Is this real? And I
mm,
say, let's jump on a call, let's try the attack live, see what happens. So I would say seeing is believing, and really
yeah.
scan.browser is to kind of like get them there. And then there's a big aha moment, and then they can't unsee what they just saw, right? So
Yeah, that's powerful. As you say, you can say all the words in the world, but when they physically see what they've just seen and the vulnerabilities, that's super powerful.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, great. And I think so. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure, Vivek, to have you on again. Just think you're a great guy, and you're building something special in the space and much needed as well, where the browser's going. If you could teach or advise CISOs and IT leaders one principle from your attacker mindset,
Hmm.
what would that be?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll kind of give it as an analogy. Just like on your endpoint, you wouldn't allow your users to download pretty much any binary from the web and install it, because, hey, that could create a big problem for you with malware, whatnot. Treat your browser with the same amount of respect, dignity, and seriousness. So if you allow your users to install any browser extension, if you're not managing your browsers, if you're not hardening your browsers, then you're basically in the stone ages, just like you were 20 years back with your endpoints.
Mm, yeah. I think it's powerful, as you say. You just using the endpoint example. This is the transition, and where the space is going.
Exactly.
Right. Well, Vivek, absolute pleasure to have you on again. Been very insightful. I've definitely learned a lot from the conversation about the browser security space. So, we'll most likely have to do it 18 months in time. We'll have to do a 3.0 and see where we're at then.
That sounds good. Sounds good. Awesome. Thanks so much,
Cool.
Stefan. It was always amazing to kind of talk to you, and wish you and the company all the best as well. And
Th-
maybe we'll bump in next year at RSA for like a
Yes,
quick, recap on previous days. Yeah.
we will have to. Thanks, Vivek.